In the earlier parts of this series, I talked about why AI systems fail in production, why AI output should not directly trigger business action, and why validation is needed before action. But validation alone is not enough. Once an AI output affects a ticket, workflow, alert, API call, or business decision, one more question matters. Can we explain what happened later? If an AI driven action cannot be traced, reviewed, or replayed, then the system is not truly production ready. That is where traceability and replay comes in. A production AI system should not only generate outputs, it should also be able to explain what happened after those outputs infuse action. For example, if an AI output updates a ticket, triggers a workflow, routes a case, or calls an API, the team should be able to look back and understand the full path. What input came in? What did the model produce? What action happened? And why was that action allowed? If the only answer is the model said so, that is not enough. In production, that creates a trust gap. The system needs a trace, it needs a decision record, and in many cases, it needs the ability to replay what happened later. This is where many AI demos break when they become real products. The output is not the end. The output usually triggers something. Input comes in, the model generates output, validation checks run, and action may be triggered. And then the system should create a decision record. That record matters because it gives the team visibility. If something goes wrong, team should not have to guess. They should be able to inspect the part and say, this was the input, this was the model output, this was the validation result, this was the action taken. This is where the issue happened. This is how teams moves from guessing to diagnosing. And that is the major part of the production reliability. Traceability is not just save some logs. That is too weak. Traceability means capturing structured evidence behind the decision. At minimum, the system should capture what input it received, what context was available, which model version was used, what output was returned, what validation checks ran, what risk level was assigned, whether human review was required, and what final action was executed. That is important because AI behavior often depends on more than just the model. It depends on the input, context, prompts, rules, model version, validation logic, and downstream workflow. So, when something goes wrong, we need evidence across the full path, not just the final output, not just someone's memory, not just screenshots. A real production system needs a decision record that can be inspected later. That is traceability. Traceability shows what happened. Replay helps reproduce it. That distinction is important. A trace tells us the path that system followed. Replay let us reconstruct that path using the same input, same context, same rules, and same model version. Why does this matter? Because when an AI system makes an unexpected decision, the team needs to know whether the issue can happen again. Was the problem caused by missing context? Was the validation rule too weak? Was the wrong model version used? Did a policy rule fail? Did a human review step get skipped? Replay helps answer those questions. It turns a confusing AI incident into something the team can test, reproduce, and fix. That is the difference between vague AI governance and real production operations. This slide shows the practical difference. Without replay, teams guess. They look through screenshots, Slack threads, partial logs, and people's memory of what might have happened. That creates confusion. Everyone may have a slightly different version of the story, and root cause becomes hard to identify. With replay, the team has a structured decision record. They can still see the full trace from input to action. They can reproduce the decision path. They can understand which checks passed, which check failed, and which action was finally allowed. That makes debugging stronger. It also makes audit easier, and it gives product, engineering, risk, and operations a shared source of truth. That is what serious production AI needs. Here is the takeaway: the model can generate, the system can validate, but the organization must trace and replay. That is how AI systems become trustworthy after they start affecting real workflows. Because in production, the risk is not only that the model gives a bad answer. The bigger issue is when the system cannot explain what happened after that answer was used. If a customer asks why something happened, the team needs an answer. If an auditor asks what decision part was followed, the system needs evidence. If engineering needs to debug an issue, they need more than screenshots and guesses. They need traceability. They need replay. That is how AI moves from useful automation to reliable infrastructure. Trace, replay, trust. In part 5, I'll cover human review versus automation, when AI should act automatically and when a human should step in. The simple rule is this: if an AI system can affect real workflows, it should be able to explain and reproduce what happened. That is traceability and replay.